Why do we create statues?
We have a responsibility to do the right things today that I think will be appreciated by our fans and by our community for the next 50 to 100 years.
I'm glad that this was my last game.
David Silva, who will say goodbye to the Premier League today.
Sergio Aguero with the goal, signs off in style.
We've commissioned an artist to do a statue. You know, there's that saying, he deserves a statue. Well, if there's anyone that deserves that, it's David.
Sergio will leave as a legend. He will be appreciated, I think, for the next 100 years. Their influence, I think, is unquestionable. And therefore, having statues is the least we can do.
Captain Fantastic! I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again. But it could be worse here still. It's Silva and it's 5!
My name's Andy Scott. I'm a sculptor. The figurative artworks, but mostly recognisable objects, either animals or humans. I studied sculpture at the art school back in Glasgow in the 80s. First big outdoor piece was in '97. That became a very well-known landmark just outside Glasgow, and that led on to the whole evolution of works, which I've been doing ever since. Techniques I use are either clay, which is cast into bronze, or steelwork, particularly unusual welded steel technique. We've got around about 6,000 square feet here, and this is where I work on my own. I also have a studio at home where I do small clay studies and maquettes. A real honour to be selected to do the sculptures for Manchester City Football Club. Obviously, being brought up in Scotland, I was more following Scottish football, but very aware of Manchester City and very aware of the transformation over the last decade or so. Absolutely thrilled to be the artist chosen to do the work for the club.
When you look at Vincent Kompany, David Silva, and Sergio Aguero, and what they have done for the history of this club, the roles that these three particularly have played in the success that we have all lived together, I think is clear to all.
His goal! His trophy!
Still finds a way through. Oh, it's wonderful play.
All three of them stayed for such a long time and really have been massive influences of the kind of history of the football club over that period. They were exactly what you'd want as value for money, both as people and as players.
Aguero, David Silva, back to Sergio Aguero! What magnificent play that was from David Silva.
I guess when you start thinking about that period, it probably starts with Vinny.
Here we go!
I would describe Vincent as a warrior. One of those players you would have hated to play against.
That guy, honestly, there's not that many words in the language that you can use to describe him. As a player, I mean, just a colossus.
His passion for the club, the fact that he really cared, fans love that. I mean, I might be wrong, but I think he lifted 9 trophies, which in City history is going to take some beating, I think.
What he generates, what he creates when he is in the pitch for the teammate. They have the responsibility of the winning, and Vincent one of them.
He's adopted man, you know what I mean? He's from Manchester, his family are from here. Remarkable guy.
Bruyne's in again. It's a wonderful tackle.
If ever there was a Manchester City player who you know that every other fan in the Premier League would want in their club, it was David Silva.
Silva left unchallenged. Still David Silva, and still wonderful goal.
How good is that?
If you had problems to solve on the pitch, you know he was the one that would solve them.
The way he played made us feel like we were part of a modern era, I think.
He'd done things where he would pass the ball and you think, who on earth is that to? And all of a sudden, I've seen him send the stadium the wrong way with a pass. Just a staggering footballer.
Silva, Sterling for a hat-trick. Raheem Sterling has a hat-trick.
And he consistently did what David does, and that's play and produce moments of brilliance.
He is the best technician that has ever played in the Premier League. He's changed the way that position is being played. I think he was the first of that generation.
Silva.
As a City fan watching Sergio Aguero, I feel very fortunate to see someone, I've watched someone for 10 years consistently who is just that great.
Oh, it is sensational! Aguero, and still Sergio Aguero, that's brilliant! Absolutely brilliant!
His conversion rate, he was just ruthless, absolutely ruthless.
His numbers, I think stats speak for themselves. Number of goals, goals per minute ratio. But then there's the intangible one, which is the timing of these goals. When we really needed him, in the big games, Sergio was always there. And I think that intangible is what makes him so important, and I think will forever be, I think, one of the greatest.
Aguero, the shot away! Absolutely sensational!
You can't imagine that we would be where we are today without those 3 players. When you hear great footballers telling you what great footballers they were, kind of brings it home to you, really.
They became winners and they became top players and winning trophies. So thanks to them, almost anyone wants to come here.
It's down to their hard work, determination, and it's their attitude, because the top players do it consistent for 10 years.
They really were giants. We need statues for these players.
He's won the league with 90 seconds of stoppage time to play!
Hi.
Hello.
Sorry we're a little bit late.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience. Thanks for joining us, both of you.
So the project came about because we got an email inquiry about a potential commission for the club. Of course, I said I was very, very interested. I presented a proposal document which had some visualisations, some sketches in it, and obviously referenced my previous portfolio of work. Fine-tuned the ideas, and they seemed happy with everything.
I think Andy Scott is best known for the Kelpies, which are two enormous horse heads in Falkirk in Scotland. And they've been voted many times as some of Britain's most revered and favourite sculptures.
Why do we create statues? I guess it's always been part of human society. I mean, go back to the dawn of civilization. Humanity has always made little symbols representing their daily life. I guess it's a primal part of the human experience.
He's a really interesting choice for this commission because although he's made figures, he's really known as an animal sculptor. But Andy Scott clearly knows his anatomy. It's very, very obvious from all of his work.
Sometimes some statuary is about celebrating or commemorating a famous person or somebody who's contributed to society, somebody who's worthy of note and remembrance. And I, as an artist, respond to those aspirations of the client and do my best to meet their expectations.
So this is still a very different approach for a football club than that adopted by others that have taken that sort of traditional bronze route. There's a different form to it, different material.
There's also this really clear connection to Manchester's industrial past. You know, it's a really important part of the Industrial Revolution. It's a place of manufacture, a place of fabrication.
So, you know, we sort of feel that maybe you're our sculpture, aren't they?
The approach to each one varies according to the brief I've been given. Personally, I tend to look at the history, social history, geography, the deeper narrative that might lie in an environment so that the sculpture has some sense of belonging or some rationale for being what it is, where it is and when it is. I like to think that the pieces are rooted in that space and that time for those people. And that probably guides me more than anything else. Essentially, the first thing I'll do is clear the space on the shop floor and draw it out. I'm a very old-fashioned sculptor in that regard. It takes a little while. I'll just chalk it all out and then start to bend the steel bars, and those first few lines on the floor are what sets the whole thing going. So it's a pivotal point, but quite an enjoyable process. But mentally, they kind of set me up for the coming task.
Hello once again, I'm Martin Tyler and this is the City of Manchester Stadium. Manchester City won 9 home league games in a row at the start of last season.
If we're talking about the transformation period, so Mark Hughes, Bayern Vinny, of course no one would have ever guessed what kind of person and what kind of figure Vincent Kompany was going to turn into and become.
And the arrival of Kompany, Belgian boy, always tipped for the top as a teenager.
Everyone who knows football knew how good he was, but he wasn't supposed to come here and be, you know, the top dog. He came in midfield. As soon as he went back to centre back, I was like, wow, this guy has got everything he can play. His leadership skills.
Foden, Ashton trying to get away from his marker. Ooh, and stretching there by Kompany could have marred his debut for Manchester City.
The first time I saw him, you can tell he was a leader from a very young age. He had personality, he had charisma. If he's able to translate that onto the pitch, this is a future captain.
I signed for 2 days. I trained once yesterday with the guys. I don't even think everybody was on training. Today I played, I didn't even know the names. And you know, just during the game I learned all the names and I started, you know, knowing how everybody plays, and I loved it when I played in the midfield, but as you see, the job had to be done in the defence.
Well, try to the fun. You are the Barclays man of the match. Here's the champagne. Well done on your debut.
Thank you very much.
stage I'm at just now in the project is building up the steel frame that you saw me starting before. You can see it's now taking on 3 dimensions, and essentially it's like a big line drawing in space what's eventually going to be the statue of Vincent. And everything you see here is like a former or an armature that's going to hold the steel of the actual sculpture. And unfortunately for me, it involves a lot of up and down ladders at this stage. Just about to start drawing out David full size on the floor. I was just checking the proportions compared to the frame of Vincent there, just trying to figure out the best way to go about this. His pose is very different from Vinny in that he's twisting, so the drawing it out flat on the ground is not quite as straightforward as it was with Vincent. One of the challenges in David's pose is that with the front foot off the ground and touching the ball, I'm going to have to put some structure through the ball and into the foot to make the whole thing rigid. I want him, upright and alert the way that he was as a player and reading the game a few seconds ahead of everybody else. But I think we've just about got it right there.
The ambitions was always that we were very clear with people that we want to be successful in the Premier League, we want to be successful in Europe. We knew as the team got stronger, teams would maybe start to set up as a low block against us. So, we wanted to dominate possession. We needed somebody that had great creativity in the midfield third or the final third, people that could open up defences. We were looking at another player. We kind of had doubts about whether he would want to join Manchester City at that time, and David became an option.
David Silva, when I first met him, when we had first signed him, he came in from Spain. He didn't speak English. He was very shy. Couldn't figure him out at the beginning. You could tell, obviously, the talent was incredible. So we knew what we were getting.
Silva still finds a way through. Oh, it's wonderful play. Aguero hat-trick hunting. What magnificent play that was from David Silva.
Before the ball come to him, he already knew where it was going. His passing was always ridiculous. His ball retention as well. He couldn't get the ball off him.
They were qualities that at that time the team didn't have.
He's really come into his own this season. He's grown in confidence. It's here. He's just jinking all the United players, scared to put a foot in.
I was very pleased when the club asked us if we would tackle Aguero formally. Unfortunately, with the way circumstances are in the world just now, I have to do all my research and background investigation by, the web and looking at footage of him. In much the same way as with David and Vincent, the client selected rough sketches. We've settled on a pose, but I can't tell you what that is. And so it's very early stages.
When you're a striker, any striker, their currency is goals, and I think that you always hope that you're bringing the right player in that fits the qualities of the team. Sergio was somebody that we felt those qualities would suit the team at that particular time.
We had identified Sergio Aguero as the target. This was the player. Roberto was the coach. Roberto was, in love with him. I mean, he was a young striker then with Atletico Madrid. Not yet at the profile. Obviously, he was still, building his profile.
Come on, his debut. He scores 2 goals. Did he get assists or something as well? It was ridiculous. It was like the best debut I've ever seen.
Lovely play. Aguero, a debut goal. And they've got yet another hero here, Manchester City.
This was this young, talented player, but explosive, dynamic, always in the game. Very difficult for defenders to mark and play against. We didn't unearth somebody that no one knew about. What we had to do was we maybe got there before other people. We had to sell them the vision and the dream of what we were trying to create.
Things have been taking shape quite nicely. The rough form is there and I can now start to fine-tune the shape. It's good to be able to take some time out, have a look at it with fresh eyes before moving on to the next details. My good old Kingsland guillotine here. It's the main thing I use for chopping the components that you see in the sculptures. I think I started using little details for the flat bar, and then that kind of just grew and developed until it became a thing of its own, and then I guess over the years I wouldn't say I perfected it because every job's different, but I like to think of it like each piece of steel is like a brush stroke, you know, so you're like an impressionist painting almost, you know, you're making up a three-dimensional object out of the pieces of flat bar, and it seems to work.
One of the great things about being a football fan is when those magical moments happen that are almost otherworldly.
The consistency of those players over the time that were with us was, you know, they were giving us moments every week. They weren't just defining games, they were defining seasons.
Nicely onto Raheem Sterling. David Silva again! We are watching something special. We are in the presence of greatness. There's David Silva. Bruyne into a great area. You know who is there again? It's a day to remember for Sergio Aguero. City's football at the moment is a delight.
We all know that a derby really matters to Vincent Kompany because he kind of told everybody. And then we saw it with that goal, that really important goal that kind of changed our fortune somewhat in 2012.
The tension, the stress that we were all feeling, and then, you know, that goal right at the end of the first half, and then seeing him, the way he celebrated, I think that is a moment I'll never forget.
Silva again. Oh, resounding header. It's the captain, Vincent Kompany.
Too strong, too powerful.
Manchester City's leader on the pitch, setting the example.
As I did my research, I looked at a lot of footage of Vincent playing. I realised his importance as a figurehead for the club and a kind of iconic part of the whole recent Manchester City mythology almost. And I wanted to come up with something that really encapsulated that. As I was watching the footage, I came upon that famous Leicester City game where he scored that incredible goal, and it was, you know, the last game.
That moment for Vinny when he scored that goal, when it's like it's scripted, the chances of something like that happening are actually pretty small. So the fact that all the elements came together made it really like a movie.
Win this and City can plan a Brighton beach party on Sunday afternoon. Failed to win this and Liverpool are one home win shy of the title.
I think that strike will probably be up there as one of my kind of moments of just pass it Vincent. Pass it Vincent, what are you doing? Pass it Vincent. Vincent, oh my God.
And look at a hit! Oh! Captain fantastic! A wild celebration for a goal from his wildest dreams!
Yes, come on. We're going to win again. I remember, not only me, next to me, in front of me, all of us, oh, no, please, no. But then, it was unbelievable.
Remember the commentary? Gary Neville, what did he say? The statue or something like that?
Where do you want your statue, Vincent Kompany?
Yeah. When he scored that, it was like, sums him up.
And that's when football becomes more than just, you know, your favourite 11 men kicking a ball around on the pitch. There's something poetic about it. He scored the best goal of his career, one of the best goals that's ever been seen from a City player ever, as his kind of parting gesture to the home fans.
I was particularly taken by the footage as he walked off the pitch, and that pose that he struck, which was
I watched it and thought there was something in that, you know, that his head was bowed, and it was a tremendous moment of pathos, and there was something in it. It wasn't a normal celebration, heroic almost, and it really struck me that this was the way to do it. And then when I spoke to Vincent himself via Zoom early on in the project, he seemed to be quite taken by that particular moment as well, and the importance it was for him in his personal history with the club.
For me, it was a quiet. I took a moment to enjoy, because I was at the brink of a very special accomplishment, you know, and like I said, I knew it was the end, but at the same time, I couldn't have dreamt of a better end, and that was like, yeah, it's gotta end. You know, it was more like a confirmation, like, that whatever you do not change your mind, because this is perfect.
Very good.
Having a husband with a statue at the football club that you've supported since you was a child is surreal. The sculpture, it means so much to me personally. When he did that pose, it was the relief of he was delivering something to the supporters to say goodbye. So I'm just really grateful that that's the pose they've chose.
Vinny had some massive moments. I think it would be one that he would want. We all know the passion and enthusiasm that he played with, but he also had a level of composure, and I think that calculates all them factors and emotions.
If you ask me about David Silva and that United game, I do think that pass was his kind of defining moment for most City fans, I think.
When the whistle goes, there will be very few Manchester United supporters here. Here's Dzeko. Couldn't be six, could it? It could, you know. A seismic day in English football.
That was one of the things where David Silva seemed to show the rest of the world just what City fans were seeing in him, really. Imperious, I think, is the words.
And there he is on the ball, the little magician. What a lovely ball, what a lovely pass.
He's one I'm glad I never was around to play against, because I know he would have twisted me inside out. An absolute little genius.
What magnificent play that was from David Silva.
He's just not one of the greats for Man City, but one of the greatest we've ever seen in the Premier League.
But how about the link-up play with David Silva? A stunning moment of quality from David Silva.
David was that player that marked the rhythm of the game.
He controlled the pace and the tempo of football matches.
David was such an incredible playmaker and midfield maestro, if you like, and appropriate for David to be in mid-flow, in action. I wanted him head up so that he was commanding the midfield, looking 2 steps ahead of everybody else.
Silva spotted the run of Sané, who might keep going and does! Lovely ball from David Silva.
David Silva turn, if you say to pretty much any football fan, but certainly a City fan, you talk about the David Silva turn, they know exactly what you're talking about.
When I was a wee boy, I used to watch football with my dad. I used to always be amazed at how my dad could tell which player was which, like before the commentator would say who it was. And my dad, I remember him saying to me, it's the way they run. Look at the distinctive little things that they do when they run. And as a wee boy, I remember that kind of sinking into my head, that there's little mannerisms that players have. And looking at David, there was those little, what would you call them, foibles, you know, little characteristics.
Hips going one way, looking the other, he's, you know, looking 2 plays ahead, and that was what informed that one.
You know, when you look at that statue and you look at that motion in that statue with the ball almost glued to his feet, it's the perfect statue.
You remember that title-winning year, we actually thought we'd lost.
Manchester City down and almost out in the title race. Arsenal up to 3rd. Contrasting emotions at the final whistle.
And then really no one could ever prepare, plan, work out what the last day of the season was ever going to give us. That amazing day.
And so this is it. The Barclays Premier League discovers its champions today, and look into the eyes of players, for many of whom this is amongst the games of their life. Led again today by the vast frame of Vincent Kompany. A month ago, Manchester City were 8 points behind. They are now a nose ahead. At Sunderland, Manchester United must win and hope. In Manchester, City just have to win. There will be tears. You know there will be tears. Silva, Touré, Zabaleta! It's in! Oh, Lescott and Cissé's in here, and Cissé scores for Queen's Park Rangers! Astonishingly! And what must Manchester United be thinking when they hear this news? Queen's Park Rangers are level at City. It's Traoré. Beyond Zamora. Oh, it's in! Unbelievable! QPR with 10 men against all odds have taken the lead at the Etihad. It's yours, United. It's yours. Silva. Dzeko scores! 4 minutes to save themselves! 4 minutes to find their crown!
With Aguero, you can't but start with the QPR moment, the greatest moment in the history of the Premier League, the greatest moment, of course, in the history of this club. I mean, everything about that moment and what was done through that goal was transformational.
Manchester City are still alive here. Balotelli, Aguero! I swear you'll never see anything like this ever again. 2 goals in added time for Manchester City to snatch the title away from Manchester United.
95% of even top strikers shoot earlier, but he took an extra touch and went near side in like a game with the biggest pressure, and he goes and scores. That sums him up. Only special players can do that.
That greatness that he actually did there was why he did what he did for the next 10 years.
I think knowing the pose that we're going for, I think we will convey some of that, his mannerism and expressiveness, shall we say.
Unbelievable talent. He can score in any way. The pace in the first meters is unbelievable, and then the finishing.
Aguero! In a choice, he drags it back. On title day, Aguero again.
You know, I don't think anybody ever thinks for one moment of bringing everybody the same to a football club. Probably that won't work, right? You need different characters, you need different personalities. You know, Vincent, David and Sergio, they're very different.
And I decided to set up this little space to do some little clay studies, to be able to work on this little maquette here at home, and gives me a feel for the pose and how it's going to work.
You know, Vincent always had a strong voice in the dressing room, on the playing pitch, always had great belief in what he was doing, what he was saying, would carry people along on his journey.
When you played this game, you were born to do this. Everybody ended up here for a reason, because you were the best in France, because you were the best in Spain and somewhere. You ended up in this place for a reason. So let's do everything we can to go and win it.
I figured it'd be good to do a portrait bust to kind of acquaint myself with their facial features and with the proportions. I was lucky enough to have a chat with Vincent and had a kind of measure of him, and he was such a lovely fellow, and I tried to kind of put a little bit of a hint of a smile on him there just to kind of bring him to life.
I made a little model which I'm going to drag in on screen here. Pardon us being too informal, we've been known as Mini Vinny while we've been working on it. So we made this little tiny version.
Lovely. Andy, last thing, you've got to show me your hands. Never seen a sculptor's hands. I thought I was gonna see chunks missing and stuff.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Thank you, much appreciated.
The day we won the title, 2014, here, someone grabbed me and Noel and my wife and said, do you want to go down into the tunnel? So the team lined up with Vinny at the front to lead them out, and he just happened to look back and he saw me and Angie, and just as he's about to go out, he stops and he weaves his way through all of these people, and he goes up to my wife and he gives a hug and a kiss and says, "Great to see you," and then goes back to the front. And I thought, I'll kiss him. That was an amazing moment. It shows you what kind of person he is. He's a real gent. You get my point. Guy's beautiful.
As a geezer, he's funny. You'd love to have a beer with him. Yeah, he's a good laugh, great footballer, just a dude, and what he did for the homeless in Manchester speaks volumes about him.
Vincent would train, go home, but then be studying. Has such an active mind. He needed lots of things to keep him energized.
That maturity, serenity, very clear, ideas about football, but also about life, strong character. So what you could imagine on the pitch, you could confirm them face to face. It was unbelievable.
What other footballer, when he's out injured, goes and does a business degree? He's so smart, and he has a sort of dignity about him and a regality in a way, that you can only inspire.
I think when you get to that point and you've done so much within the game and you can still be that humble is something that I'll always remember of Vincent. He was forever one of our biggest supporters from the women's team when we first joined. I can be always forever grateful for what he's done for me personally, but also for our team as well.
Probably is more unusual for a footballer to be captured not with the ball. But again, I think that kind of quality of leadership, the kind of iconic status that Vincent had with Man City, it led me towards that more triumphant and a grander statement to have him without the ball and not being mid-flow during a game. I think it suited him and the character I was trying to portray. Having gone through the process with this little fellow, I decided that maybe a good way to move things along was to start a little maquette. Same idea as before, and this again has been fairly invaluable in terms of working out the pose, the dynamic of it, the movement. This is David Silva caught in a moment of movement as he's just twisting away with the ball. He's about to scoop the ball away in one of those incredible passes that he did.
Physically, he didn't have the attributes of Vincent, but brave in terms of keeping the ball, knowing that he was getting kicked and kicked and kicked. He would come back for more. It didn't matter to him. He would just say, keep giving me the ball. That's a special, special quality. You don't see that often in too many players.
Well, his ability is star-studded.
When we won the league away to Brighton, we were in the dressing room after, and he wore two shirts that day. He wore one in the first half and one in the second half, and he kept them and he gave one each to my two sons who were with me. My two lads were like, what a dude.
The pitch, he was the unbelievable leader. Out of the pitch, he was shy. He doesn't like too much about the media thing, and you have to respect also the people who they are.
But even though he wasn't the captain, he wasn't a leader with his words, but he was a leader with action. He showed to the players what a leader was.
Well, after everything with his son and everything, he really was thankful for the City fans, just like we were thankful for him.
The most down-to-earth person, for someone that's achieved things he has, ridiculously humble. David is a real friend, a good guy.
I did David mid-game. It might be a more obvious route to go down. I think there's a logic to it because so many players are so distinctive and well known because of their playing style, because of one particular moment in a game.
Seeing the statue of David, and it's not an iconic moment, it's what he did consistently. Being in control of when the ball's at his feet, when everyone else is hectic around him, he just always found a level of composure.
That sort of void of discovery that I think we were thinking we would only get through different artists, we still get here with you. You can still see a different treatment.
One thing I think that fans intuitively know about Sergio Aguero is that he's loyal, you know.
Obviously he's an incredible striker, and that doesn't come easy, you know. He's obviously a very dedicated, and you know, he can be as hard as nails when he has to be, but he also seems to have a joy about him and a love for the game. And
somebody that was a bit like David, very, very calm, very, you know, did his training, went home.
Top goal scorers in the world tend to not be as low key as he does. He seems to be you never hear anything negative about him.
He's another one, he was just a really lovely guy when you'd see him. He always had a smile on his face, always.
One picture for the players. Young players.
A boyish enthusiasm, perhaps. That's the way he seems to be when you see interviews with him.
So many times that I remember before games, Sergio would walk in, put a smile, be completely relaxed, and look at me and say, you know, don't worry, boss, I won this game today.
He's very quiet, training as well, quiet, funny guy.
One word for him. Different gravy.
But then you see the hunger on the pitch.
People gravitate to that glamorous moment, but it's that tackle, it's that run back, it's that helping a teammate, it's playing when you might be injured, it's all of those things that make them what they are.
My role is really on major projects, major developments. I've been asked to pop down here to Philadelphia just to see this project. Really, I'm just their eyes and ears today, but immensely impressive, both the creative input and the way in which they're bringing this together.
Well, I guess you could say we're in the final few weeks of construction, fabrication of the sculptures. We've been lucky enough to bring in a few reinforcements. These final stages, things like the hands and especially the face, the heads, it's much more delicate work. It's difficult to be gestural using steel. It can be a bit frustrating at times.
What we've got to do as an organisation is to make sure that they are put together in a way that really brings out the artist's creative process. Got to make sure that's done right and they're put up in a way that is accessible for the fans.
I think you'll probably experience this pressure now, this sort of fan base. You know, they're very strong opinions about the way things should be, and you've got this immense task of trying to develop a representation of something that is almost, I won't say godlike, but you know, these players have lifted souls and spirits and had people.
I'm going to have a sit down now. You. Man City, like many clubs, but as far as I can see and understand, you know, that's a seriously devout following. You know, I want to do them proud and create something that those fans are going to appreciate. I felt that as a real pressure. I'll be honest, that was really quite intense. These things are occupying my every waking and sleeping moment. It's good to know that we're coming to the end of the project. We'll soon see them going off to the galvanisers. That's always a major triumph, if you like, is seeing them leave the workshop.
completely warrant getting a statue, but it is unusual to go from no statues to 3 statues. And they're different characters played in the same period, the same team. To the layman or whatever, or to the fan, you're thinking, well, that's the club getting the chemistry right, I think.
You can't imagine that we would be where we are today without those 3 players. When you hear great footballers telling you what great footballers they were, kind of brings it home to you, really.
Picked up deliciously for David Silva. How good is that? Just a delight.
Bruyne's ball in. Aguero doesn't miss those.
They became the leaders in the dressing room, and I think that as we grew and developed that team, Vincent, then Sergio, David, became those cornerstones of the team. And the beauty then was people could begin to see what we were doing.
Yeah, they've been the foundation to where we are today, and they've taken it from a mid-table Premier League club and taken us to Champions League finals, winning Premier League titles, and we'll be forever in debt.
With David, I never forget that season when his baby was born and what he had to go through. But watching him deal with the challenge, that personal challenge he was dealing with, but at the same time perform in the way he was performing, and seeing how he somehow galvanized the entire club. That was my special moments, that whole season with David, I think.
The reality is that Vincent in the important moments of the team, he was always there. It's that leadership, no? It's that reference. It's again, when you feel weak, you try to get someone stronger than you next to you. Important moments of the team, he was always there. Even scoring.
Vincent Kompany arrives with an emphatic header.
The emotion from that, 93-20. When you talk about galvanizing a team and a team spirit, and just the emotion from that, it was just ridiculous. Only special players can do that.
Sculptures are finished now in terms of the fabrication. And they put the crates together in about a day at the workshop, and then they were taken away on a big truck. To suddenly have it not there and in the hands of others is quite a strange experience.
It was a great honour to be part of this journey to ensure they arrived ahead of their unveiling at the Etihad Stadium.
Seeing all the pieces of the puzzle come together and form a beautiful picture, that's what keeps us going and that's what keeps us driving.
The guys sort of were the catalyst for us being so good. You just felt, it didn't matter when they were in the side, you felt you could win any game. That's the spine of the club.
Absolutely, this club wouldn't be where it is without those sorts of guys. The solid foundations they built for us.
Aguero, Kompany and David Silva, they're the ones who pushed us on to go and do what we needed to do.
I remember day one when I came into this club. I always dreamed of or imagined a time when we would have a trophy cabinet that shows consistent winnings, be it in every competition we play. with that dream, it was always in my heart knowledge that for that to happen, you needed giants, you needed legends, you needed players that are going to transform this team. And when that happens, we need statues for these players. I honestly always imagined that 10 years ago.
Their story says really nice things about the club, about loyalty from the player, but also about the player to the club. That makes fans feel like we're part of a club that means something.
Honoured to play with these players though, you know. I know it sounds cringe, doesn't it? But it was, because you don't know how good they are until they're gone.
David Silva gets his 50th Premier League goal. Just glorious football, stunning to watch.
It's the biggest honour in football from any team that you can have is a statue, and to say you've played alongside these guys and been able to call them friends was huge. It was huge for me.
I've been deeply honoured to have been asked to do them, and I've done my level best, and I think that's all I can say, and I just really hope that they respond favourably. I've certainly put in the hours along with my colleagues here in the studio, and I hope that the audience for the sculptures respect and respond well to that.
If somebody mentions a statue of those people, it means that they've made an incredibly significant contribution to a place or a moment in time, have brought so much joy, happiness, great credibility to the club.
Sergio Aguero, whose 178th goal for the club on Wednesday makes him City's all-time leading marksman. His goal in Naples broke a City record that had been held for 3 generations.
Because Man City have done so well in a short space of time, a lot of other clubs always want to throw stones. Like, forget the outside noise, it's between the players, you know, all the staff who work behind the scenes, the management staff that have been and, you know, present and past, and even future. Who cares what anyone thinks? It's about the fans.
You know, I'd like to think of it almost as an orchestra. And what we've had over the years is the careful construction of that orchestra. And that orchestra is people, it's infrastructure. I mean, there's so many elements. And I think these players were obviously leaders within this orchestra, but they couldn't have done it without the band. A crucial component of the band is the fans.
And I think that everyone should remember them and what they mean, and just keep that grounding behind who we are, you know, for the next generations to see and go, oh, that's where we came from.
We're getting new fans around the world, but also, you know, me and Jack, if we have kids, it's to show them who those players were and what they've done for this football club.
And it's just starting to think, where is Aguero going to go? Where are we going next?
You know, everyone will be like, meet you at the Kompany statue, meet you at the Silva statue. I think it'll just become part of everyone's match day life.
Want me to talk you through anything on this, or do you just want me to be quiet while you look at that? I don't know if the camera operator wants me to talk through this while we...
Oh la la, fantastic. Fantastic. The statue is fantastic. You know, I couldn't dream this. For my son, what I can say is he did it very, very, very good. Injured, not injured, he was every time there. He was a special captain. We cannot forget the mother of my children.
Yeah.
Okay.
I understand. She would have been so proud.
Yeah.
Leonida,
Beautiful. Qué emocionante, ¿no? Yo orgullosa.
My children and their friends are City fans, and it's down to players like them that have contributed and made this a constant thing of success.
These will be here for decades to come, and not only for the fans today but for the fans of tomorrow, to talk about these players and the impact they had.
They're the trailblazers, they're the ones that have created our modern day history. David, he was like Phil, had a great appetite for the game, absolutely loved the game.
Phil Foden wouldn't be the player he is today without David Silva. Kevin De Bruyne wouldn't be the player he was today without David Silva.
Captured by Silva, Aguero across goal, and Manchester City have a much-craved lead, and it's their boy. Phil Foden flung himself at it and scored a goal of great personal and collective significance.
The challenge for Phil is, can you continue to win medals, win titles, have the career that these guys have had? I'm keen and anxious to make sure that we continue this journey. How do we bring the next generation? You know, who are they going to be? Are they going to achieve what they've achieved?
I think it's a way to tell to the new ones, first you are part of something already important, and then you can show the kind of players that they've been already playing for this club. You have to repeat what these guys they've done.
You know, that memory, there's no better way, in my view, than a statue to keep it there for the record, for history, and for the next generations.
And you need those statues, you need that history, you need that facility to keep reminding people, this is who we are. We want to be the most successful club in this country and the most successful club in Europe. Those three statues will always be a marker for us all to go, that is the level. What they achieved was the level.
I didn't really expect to be recognized by such a great club in that way. Yeah, I'm grateful.
Being a City changed my life. I'm proud of what we did together, and I feel emotional that it's been recognized like this.
The first time I saw the statue, I couldn't believe how big it was. But then again, I'm a big boy, so yeah, fair enough.
I'm feeling relieved. Really is a tremendous honour and a very humbling experience to be asked to represent these players for the fans, you know. They really are taking pride of place. They're looking really good, and I'm absolutely delighted.
We're looking at these sculptures here and now, but in a very few short years, these works are going to be, in a way, part of the past, and young girls and boys are going to look at these works and they're going to aspire to being part of Manchester City Football Club's amazing history.
This statue really represents the way I like to play. That moment when I had to find the striker or to my teammate.
The pose, you know, for me it means a lot. I knew it was my last game ever for Manchester City at the Etihad. It was a mixture of relief, happiness, pride. Yeah, I've never experienced so many feelings in one moment. It will always remind me of that.
It's very humbling to have something that will be there forever in Manchester.
My family, people I love, to be able to see that someone they love is recognized in such a way doesn't happen in life normally. You never have a time to look back at something you've achieved. And for the very first time, I can look back and say, hey, it was cool. It was pretty unique.
As if this wasn't a great enough honour, I've been asked to look at Sergio, and I just cannot wait to get my sleeves rolled up on that one. I'll be getting onto that as soon as I get back to my workshop, get out of this suit and get into my boiler suit and be doing what I'm supposed to be doing, you know. So no, I'm super excited, can't wait, and here we go again.